Hello, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are viewing us from, and welcome to our 6-part webinar series, What You Need to Know About Digital Fabrics and Why. My name is Lily Hunter, Product Manager here at Roland DGA, and with me I have
Mike Sanders with Top Value Fabrics.
And basically, Mike is a great partner to do this webinar with just because he's got so many years of experience in this textile industry. I love listening to him, and he's got great insight. So tell us a little bit about your background.
I've been in textiles for over 40 years. First half
Started at 10.
Yeah, more like 13. Because my father had a dyeing, finishing, and printing plant, Cal Pacific Dyeing and Finishing, which was started in 1967, and I was there for, over 25 years. And we did dyeing, finishing, and printing of fabrics. And we had rotary screen equipment there, and then we got into digital as digital started up, and we saw it first when it was like, oh, that's cool, but what are you going to do with it? Because you only do 6 yards in a day.
Wow,
until where we are right
yards.
now. Yes, that was
amazing.
I remember the first machine. That's what they said they could do in a day.
Wow, that is just, you just do prototype, one prototype
exactly,
a day.
Exactly. But it's very much changed, and boy,
it's exciting.
Crazy.
Exciting.
It's crazy cool what's going on.
All right, so we are going to launch a quick survey just to get an idea of what you are looking. We will definitely distribute all 6, so that way it makes a great training package for your salespeople, purchasing, anyone, new employees. So
yeah, if you go through what we're talking about, you'll have a really good understanding of dye sublimation and the fabrics to know what you're asking for, so you can be very successful in doing dye sublimation in your facility.
All right, okay, so while we are waiting for the results, we're just going to go and take a look at some of the results here. And it looks like 75% of you guys are looking into soft signage, and 68% into apparel, and 28% in home furnishings. That sounds about very common as what we're seeing in regards to sublimation and stuff. So lots of great information. All right, so let's go over some of the things that we're going to cover. So here are some of the takeaways. All right, first off, Fabric 101. This is where just pick Mike's brain. He will teach you anything and everything about fabrics, fabric types, constructions, finishes, and more. Best fabrics for the application, how the fabric constructions impact the dye sublimation process, some of the fabric testing requirements that not only that TVF does, but whoever you're getting your fabrics from, it's good to check and see if they do some of these things. And if not, you know the types of questions to ask.
Yeah, one of the things that's very different about with the fabrics that we do at Top Value is we have a solution for home furnishings, apparel, and signage, and everyone's done with separate teams that are very knowledgeable about what they're doing, because you have to have knowledgeable people when you're doing these fabrics, and have to be able to answer all these questions and being able to get you the right product.
Right, and so we'll go over that and some common fabric and printing issues. So the purpose of us doing this webinar series is to have you guys get a background of fabrics and try to help curb a lot of the mistakes that are made out there, because no one wants to waste money. And for those of you who are selling to different end users, we want you to know the right questions to ask, so that way when you procure the fabric, you get the right product. So those are some of the very, very important issues. All right, so let's take a look real briefly about the different types of constructions and some ideal applications.
Yes, first we're going to talk about wovens. A woven fabric is done on a woven machine, and when you're weaving, and those are your square weaves, which would be like a poplin or a canvas, twills, which can be a left-hand twill, a right-hand twill. It can be a 2x1, 3x1. There's lots of different constructions in the twills. There's ripstop, dobbies, satines, jacquards. It's just an amazing amount of different ways you on a woven machine that you can do these different applications and do these different patterns. Ideally, wovens are for your apparel and home furnishing, some signage.
Yeah,
but
yeah, you
mostly
don't see too much in signage.
No, it's mostly apparel and home furnishings. Next, we'll have circular knits, which are your jersey, ribs, interlocks, piquets, fleeces. Lots of different constructions there, and that's mostly apparel and some home furnishings.
Right, right.
And then we have our warp knits, which is a very, very stable construction, which makes it mostly ideal for the signage. And we're talking meshes, flags, satins, and that's mainly for your soft signage. There are some home and some home furnishings that do use it, but it's very, very specialized on what types of constructions they're used in. But we'll go over each one a little bit now, but very in depth in the next series.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just some images of how things are made.
This is on wovens. As you can see, the yarns are on the left there. They're first
Lots of yarns.
Yes, and then they're doing the warps, which is the fabric running in the length of the fabric, and then when they put it on the weaving machines, they're going to do the fill, and you'll see that. So right now, okay. We're going there, and here's the actual machines that are doing that. You see all the needles setting up the different constructions. There's many different types of woven machines that can do a lot of different setups. And as you see all those needles there that are actually setting up on how the constructions are done, that's not a little thing putting those together. And whenever you're telling someone, oh, it's no big deal to change it, yes it is.
Yes it is. Oh my gosh, look at all those needles.
Yeah, anywhere from like a day to almost a week, depending on how big of a changeover you're doing on these machines.
Right, and obviously you want some nice long production runs if you're going to take that much time to set things up.
Yes.
So, so this is where the long production runs are. And let's take a look at circular knits.
And when they say circular knittings, it's because it's done in a tubular fashion.
It's circular.
Right. As you can see on the left, you have your knitting machine there. They have all the spools of the thread. They go up into the machine and get, again, through the needles and through the different setups on the circular knitting machine. And everything's that fabric on the right, that's only half the width of the fabric. That'll get put it in the machines in the tubular form. Sometimes it'll be opened up depending on the construction.
Right, so right now this is just half.
Half the fabric.
Okay.
Depending if you're going into a continuous bleaching range, you'll open it up beforehand. Some fabrics, if they have like spandex or lycra in them, they have to heat set those prior to going. And then there's sometimes people will actually use the fabric in that tubular section to make body sizes and doing it that way. So there's a lot of different things you can do with circular knits.
All right. And then this next one, which we see a lot of for soft signage.
And this is warp knits. This is our mill, George Otto Frederick in Germany. And as you can see here, they're very, very sophisticated machines. Again, knowing where your fabric's being done, seeing the type of machines and the sophistication of them really has a lot to outcome of what you're going to get product-wise. As you can see on the right, there's a color eye there. If there's a defect, the machine's going to stop.
So it doesn't keep going, making the same defect throughout the whole production run.
Right, and also if there are sometimes defects in the rolls, but it'll map it and tell you where it is. So we'll actually have a thing that if you get a roll and there is a defect, it'll tell you exactly where it's marked, and so you know it's there, because fabrics never run 100%.
Right.
There's no fabric that you're going to see it's going to be 100%.
Perfect.
So you'll see there's things like flags and things we'll get into later on how we mark fabrics for the defects.
Okay, so we are going to go over briefly some of the popular finishes per application. So, so these are done after the fabrics have been woven or knit.
Yes,
correct?
They can be done either in the dyeing part where they're actually exhausted into the fabric, or depending on like the flame retardants and the water repels, we normally always do a pad finish because the way it puts it all the way through the fabric and also cross-links. So it depends on the chemistry of the finish that we're doing. So
Right.
for your soft signage, we're mostly talking about flame retardants, and we'll get in depth on how that's done
Right.
and what you need to do there, but that's very important that that's done and tested properly. And then it's durable water repels, so you'll see the DWR lots of times, and that's what that stands for.
Performance, that's a lot of different finishes that
Yes.
people like to have, because a lot of times I hear questions as people are looking to get into apparel and sports apparel. Does a polyester, the wicking properties and, and antimicrobial. So these are different types of finishes that can be added to the fabric.
Right, and that's one thing you really need to ask the questions about what the finish is and how it lasts and how the testing's done. Because we have seen wicking finishes that after a couple of washes will be gone.
There's no wicking.
Yeah, and when polyester doesn't work, that's not good.
Oh man. Leisure suits and
Exactly. Yes, and and if you have a very good wicking finish, what's going to happen there is you're taking the moisture from your body, it comes through the fabric and evaporates. So it's like if you have a cotton t-shirt and you work out, you're going to be wet, but if you have it with polyester with the right wicking, you're dry.
Right.
And there are so many different things. Polyester is not the same polyester
Not at
that was around when I was a kid. I mean, it's amazing what's happened with polyester and the different hands and the different types of polyester that can mimic a lot of different fabrics.
Absolutely, and that's why we even see it more so in home furnishings.
Yes.
To that mimicking the cottons and the different textures, so it can go through the sublimation process and some different finishes there. The soil release.
Yes, the soil releases, and we'll use things like the DuPont Teflon finishes on it that will really hold through the fabric for the whole life. The flame retardants, again, have something that's not going to wash off. It's not going to do that. Most of the times for home furnishings, no one's washing a couch.
No,
so you're more worried about crocking and pilling and things like that. So different testing for what the use of the fabric is. So it's very cognizant that you're buying a fabric that's engineered for what your end use is.
So now these types of finishes, is there a shelf life? So say someone bought a whole bunch of fire retardant fabric and they don't use it right away. Sometimes they have it for maybe a few months to a year or a couple years down the road. Is that fire retardant? Will it still pass or will it slowly dissipate over time?
Well, it depends on how it's done. I mean, we do.
So there are different levels.
Different levels. We can. The most durable is having it done in the yarn state, and if it's done that way, there are fire retardant yarns that we use in constructions, and they'll never.
Right.
But again, they're much more expensive.
Right. So
if we pad them on and do it the right way, they're good for the lifetime of the fabric.
Okay.
Because again, as long as you don't wash flame retardants, you don't have a problem. If you're going to wash it and it's going to be something that's going to be that, then you want something that's done with the yarn so it doesn't wash out. But if you're doing it for home furnishings, you don't have to worry about it. No one's washing a couch or a chair. So.
Right, and then also with home furnishing, when you go buy a couch or whatever, they ask, "Oh, do you want that little protective spray over it? That nice little."
It's a pretty much of a gimmick. When you're doing things on home furnishings, you want to have that done at the mill state, because when we do it at the mill state, the soil release and things like that, they get put on, or the water repels, they get locked in, and we put it through the fiber, and then when it does, it cross-links in the drying process.
Which is better than just it sitting on top.
It makes a chemical bond. The
right,
other
you
one,
need the cross-linking.
Right, the other one will, when you first do it, it's great, but after you wear off it in certain spots.
after all the wiping.
Exactly, so where you're sitting all the time, those spots there are going to rub off.
Where the kids spill things, they're like, and wiping that spot, so and then pretty much that area.
Yeah, the red wine's going to stick.
Well, hopefully the kids aren't drinking the red wine, but grape juice for the kids.
Exactly.
All right. So you spoke about fabric testing. So here is a list that TVF goes through. And not everyone necessarily goes through them. Some may not. So we'll go through a few of these right now, but as we said, we will go more in depth what these mean and types of questions to ask as you are shopping for fabrics, because a lot of times you see a general description. Right. And so you're thinking you're buying similar products as you're looking at all these different descriptions, and you see a price difference, well, there's a reason why. And fabric testing, I think, also lends to what
Exactly.
you're getting.
And if you're going to someone to buy fabric and they can't answer the questions about their fabrics, then they're not the person you want to go to. We can answer the questions on anything that we're selling, and anybody that you buy fabric from needs to be able to have all this information there. And depending on what the fabric's for, depends on what test you're going to be using. And
Right.
some people say, well, you know, they'll do a thing that's for elasticity. Well, that only has to do if you have a stretch fabric.
Material, so you don't need that if
some
it's
people
not gonna
will just ask for everything. You got to be cognizant of what you're doing and doing the right tests for that.
Right,
So,
right.
for instance, you always need to know we always make sure we know the weight of every yard that comes in, every lot that comes in. We
Right.
test it and know what that is, and we can tell everybody what that is. The shrinkage has to be always constant.
Right.
The main thing is if anything shrinks over 5%, it's going to change the size.
Right,
Or if
right.
it's with an SEG, it's not going to fit in the frame.
Right,
So
right.
it's really understanding that the fabrics have, that shrinkage is huge.
Right, right.
Torquing is the way something moves and strains, and that can be, if it's going into an SEG, that it stays, you know, in that frame and doesn't start making wavy lines. And if it's in a garment, it's making sure that
It doesn't look, the seams don't.
yeah, the seams don't
twist.
turn on you, and all of a sudden you got your side seam on your pant in the front. So those are the kinds of things that
I've
you're
bought
looking
some
for.
cheap pair of pants. I've done that before.
Yeah, and then we've got
a lot of different types of tests.
and then very, very specialized is the flame retardant test, because
Yes.
that's safety and things like that, and those
certain
things need to be done.
requirements too.
Yes, and
the
those
building codes and requirements. If you're going to sell into certain applications, there are so many different levels.
if you're going into a trade show, a hotel, or something like that, those things have to be on file, and anybody you're selling it to has to do that. And you need to make sure that the fabrics are perfect, and there's no messing around with flame retardant testing.
No,
That's
no.
probably the most of all these tests. That's the most critical one of all of them.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
because that's safety.
Yes.
And
yes.
then you have burst strength and how something will last and how strong it is. Pilling. You ever get a T-shirt and
With
after a
all
couple
the
of washes,
little
you get the little pills on it.
You get
That's
a
the
little
pilling.
shaver to try shaving it off to get a little bit more usage.
Classic. Snagging. A lot of the performance fabrics. One fabric to another in the same construction, depending how it's done and the yarns are used, can have big problems with snagging. You ever lean up against a fence with a performance thing and all of a sudden it sticks?
Yeah,
like
and
on
you're
Velcro.
Velcro on the back now instead of this nice smooth.
Yes,
surface.
and you know, so we do the snagging test, air permeability, how the air goes through. Let's say a flag fabric or something like that,
Yeah.
or we have fence fabrics that
Right, this barrier fabrics.
Exactly.
You don't want it to be a sail.
yes, and we'll go into that most further in. We'll go into these
Right.
way more. The moisture, making sure the thing breathes and all that.
Yes.
Making sure also that if there's a problem with color, that the migration test that we can do
Right.
on the fabric, because we are putting lots of times there's finishes on there, and if it's not done properly, the color could migrate.
Right, right.
Elasticity, with all the things, soft signage, so many things now that are 2- and 4-way stretches being done now. A lot of architectural things where things are being moved, so elasticity is huge in SEGs.
Yes.
And some of them makes it so much easier to put them into
Right.
in there. In leggings, which
Yes,
is now
you
surpassed.
definitely want that stretchy.
And the recovery of it
Yes.
too is knowing what's going on. So elasticity test is huge because this year,
Yeah, not just the
Legging-
fact that it
leggings-
stretches, but how it
right,
recovers.
leggings surpassed for the first time denim for
Yeah.
jeans. So there's more leggings being made than jeans are.
Athleisure, that's
Yes,
so
and
popular.
athleisure is going to be a great place for anybody doing dye sublimation to really,
Get it.
yeah, because
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of opportunities there. And then crocking is how the dyes or inks stay on the fabric, and
Right.
that's rubbing off of the fabric, the inks
Right.
of the dye. So, and that's very, very important that you don't oversaturate
Absolutely.
and have an issue with the crocking.
Things rubbing off.
Exactly.
Okay, now for sublimation process, the important thing is your calendar or heat press. So the calendar press, I know some people say, it looks like a laminator. Can I use my laminator? And the answer is no, do not use a laminator.
No, please.
Yeah. So we'll go into details about the calendar. Heat press would be like your clamshells, whether it's the smaller desktop to the large format. It all depends on what you're going to make. Will determine the type of heat press you're going to get. But the main thing that to get consistent result is dialing in the time, how long for the sublimation process, the temperature, and the pressure. And certain fabrics will behave differently, and we'll go over some different techniques and specialty, things to do with each product in the next. One of the next webinars that we're recording.
We have one specifically on this because the calendar heat press, the variations of price, first of all, from some of the entry-level machines to some of the bigger level machines is very big. But
And you can see some of the quality results. You can see the differences. And depending on the market you're selling into,
you need to know what you're getting.
Yeah.
And you're going to pay for, and what you pay for is what you get.
Right, and this is true for the whole product, the fabrics, the heat press, the printer.
Yes. So it's talking to people that will be able to get the right recommendations.
Right. Now, some of the common fabric issues that affect printing, lot to lot yarn inconsistency. So we'll go more into details about that. So not all yarns behave the same way. So.
Right. And also, it's so important that whoever you're getting your fabrics from, they have full control of their fabrics, because if they switch yarns, your profile switches.
Right, your white point is different, how it behaves, how it receives the ink. So many things can change.
So it's really, really important that that fabric never changes. And it can even be the same yarn, but they switched it to a different machine or a different dye where it goes through the dye house. Everything's got to be consistent all the way through so the profile doesn't change.
Right, right. Uneven tensioning of the roll of fabric, that's a big one, especially if you're going to feed it through a calendar press. Collapsed or crushed cores, that's the picture. I call it the toilet paper roll. I've had some fabric sent to me where it's this 54 or 60 inch roll of fabric, and it just warps.
It's like a U-turn, right?
Yeah. So I'm just carrying it like a purse, and it's like, how do I even fit this through the calendar press just to feed it through? So cores are actually important for something that you throw away. It's important.
Such a simple process.
Yeah.
On doing, you think it would be a no-brainer, but if you have a cord that breaks, there's no way to retube it. Nobody has a tubing machine usually at their place.
Right.
So you either have to send it back to the person who you got it from, or you're out there trying to roll it back, re-roll it, and that can be a catastrophe. So the one thing that we do is we make sure that all of our tubes are in a situation they're not going to collapse on you.
Yeah,
I mean, the only way it's going to collapse is someone drove over with a forklift.
Right.
So, it's so important to do that, and that's something that simple thing, but can ruin your whole day.
Absolutely. Wrinkles, dirt, defects, anything that's on the surface of the fabric, if those aren't caught or clean and it goes through the sublimation process, guess what? The inks are now going to be sublimating onto those wrinkles and dirt, and so you're going to have areas where there's ink, areas where there's no ink. So it's very important that the surface is clean.
And that's all has to do with the inspection of the fabric prior to you getting it. And some fabrics, because of the way they're made, have to be re-tubed off to get all the flaws out. If not, you're gonna have to do a lot of reprinting. Right.
Shrinkage. That's I actually are quite a few questions in regards to shrinking, and do I pre-shrink? How does this affect things? We'll go more into details, but knowing the shrinkage and how it performs and the characteristics of that fabric makes a difference.
Everything should be 5% or under on your shrinkage, because anything over 5% will change the size.
Right.
So you need to do there, and some you want even less depending on what you're making. The great thing about polyesters is that you can heat set them and stabilize it if it's done right.
Right.
But there are certain constructions that are always going to be difficult. Not all fabrics are the same and not always run the same. Whenever you've got things with stretch in them, then
That's
you've
the
got
other next thing too.
right. That throws a curveball in there, and your machine can actually be stretching as it's going through. So
Right.
depending on the type of machine and how it's set up, you need to know how that is to make sure you control your shrinkage properly. And we get very in depth on
Yes.
it in our later
So
talks.
all these questions that I'm seeing in regards to stretch fabrics and shrinkage and things of that nature, we will definitely address them.
Yes, we will.
Okay, and so just to kind of wrap things up, to go over some of the arenas, and this is part of the poll questions that we did. We just want to see where people are looking to get into. I mean, soft signage, you see that everywhere. Trade shows galore. There are a lot of things that are done with soft signage.
Well, soft signage is changing completely because of the SEG frame systems. I mean, with the SEGs, where you have
Yeah.
and then we take it and we put the SEG, which is a silicone ribbing, into the frame systems. It changes everything because the way people can market and how they do things with those and the way it's sold is amazing. You'll see it everywhere, from your Apple stores to every airport you walk through,
Yes.
car dealerships, and it's getting more and more. I think probably you'll see, because Europe has been using SEGs longer, and if you go there, you see it almost in every
Everywhere.
spot. But here in the U.S. in the last 2 years, it's huge, and this
Yes.
is what's changing a lot of the ways people do things, and
Right.
it's an easy way of doing it. It looks way better than
Yeah.
a lot of the other ways of showing.
It's easier to install.
It's easy to install and it looks great. You know,
For a sign shop, you can actually, or not a sign shop, but for retail applications,
Right.
you can have the retail employee actually, change things out. You don't need a special installer to change out the graphics or hang them. You just make sure they know how to put it into the SEG frames, and you can switch out as needed.
yeah, and we have people that use it for interior designs. They can do a whole wall. They can change it from looking like a jungle one week to having it look like the Sahara, and just by changing the way it all looks. And it's amazing what's going on architecturally with SEGs also.
Right. Apparel, as we said, performance, athleisure. Actually, I saw an ad where there were yoga pants, but they were made to look like work trousers for ladies. So I was very tempted to order it, just the comfort, but it looks professional and business. It fits into business casual. So, you see that everywhere. Athleisure is just so common. It's not just, for working out, it's for
It's amazing.
running
And
around.
actually for travel, it's so much better.
Yes.
Because if you're going into places with hot climates, again, the wicking finish wicks, they're very, very strong and durable. They don't wrinkle.
Yeah.
And they look nice. I mean, it's not, like I said, there's been so many changes with polyester and the way we have it and the way the hands are.
Yeah.
And
it's not that shiny,
No.
uniform material. I mean, there's some, but then there's so many other types.
And it's changing completely. Like I said, we have polyesters now that feel like cotton, and that's a huge thing.
And
do
we'll
that.
show some of these different applications for apparel and soft signage and the fabrics
Yes,
too.
because we're going to show you a lot of different things that are happening with fabrics these days, and the
Okay.
changes, especially for dye sublimation.
Yeah, and home furnishings. And as you can see, we have some pillows here.
You see the pictures of the couch and chair in there.
Yes, reupholstery is, so many things that you can do.
And this is a mind changer, because we show this to designers, and they're blown away with what you can do with it. I mean, you can design a house for one person and it's all custom.
Right.
You could never do that before, because with screen charges, it was out of the question. And also the things we can do with different types of techniques that you could never do with a rotary screen or a flatbed, as far as photography and overlays and doing different things. Something like the pillow that's right here. You could never do this on a regular rotary or flatbed.
Right. It's really, really amazing. All right, so definitely a lot of great questions. And since this first one is a broad overview, I appreciate these questions. We will address these specific questions as we record in each specific section. So we will definitely get to them. So for now, we thank you for your time. And so in regards to the next webinar in this series, we're going to do Fabric 101, an in-depth look at fabrics and construction. So I see a lot of questions in here in regards to different types of fabrics and constructions and applications. We will definitely address your questions in the next webinar. And like I said, this is just part 1 of 6. We will definitely go in depth. So with that, we thank you for your time. And there's going to be a post-webinar survey to see what other types of topics you'd like us to work on in the future. And with that, we thank you for your time, and keep a lookout for the follow-up email with not just this webinar, the link to this webinar, but all 6 of them in the series. So keep a lookout for that.
Yes, and once you go over them and you see what we've got there, I think you'll be very happy and you'll be able to answer pretty much all the questions you would have with fabrics. Thank you.
Thank you.